Okay, welcome. My name is Harry, and basically today I'm going to be taking you through a Databricks training course that we've designed for internal use. It's basically just giving people kind of some of the beginner skills. This does kind of assume that you have knowledge of how Jupyter Notebooks work and what Databricks is, but we're going to give you some of the functionalities to help you debug code and work your through some of the Databricks notebooks that you might be having trouble with or working on yourself. This first session is just going to be looking at the functions select, filter, alias, and join. The way we set up these notebooks is we provide some of the documentation at the start. This is generally links to the Spark website where you can find how the functions are used. And then it will take you through some examples with basically a lot of hints. And at the end of it, there'll be a practice example, which is more something the client would give you. With less hints, but it will be using all of the skills that you've just used above. So let's get into it. So we open up with a blurb of basically what the lab is going to be about, the useful resources, and then there's a pre-set up script. In this example, I'm just loading in the functions that they're going to be using. I'm also loading in the data tables. The data is stored in Databricks. I'm not interested at this point in people loading in their own data or teaching them how to do that. Just to get started, we're going to give them the data and then they can just basically play around with it. So before anything, it would probably be good to have a look at what the data is. So we're going to open up with the display. And actually, we can just write both of these together. So if we look at the data that we've been given, basically we have a people table and a job table. So they're pretty basic stuff. So it's just some fabricated data, names, IDs, location, ages, and then jobs, how much the job is getting paid, IDs on that. So nothing too technical there. Okay, what we're being asked to do in section 1 is immediately, so it's saying have a look at the data, which we've already done. I should point out there is 2 types of display. So we use the dot display. Now, what you can do is wrap this in the display itself. Now, what this gives the ability to do is actually add a function in it. So if we were to do like a filter and add some stuff in there, we can display all of that. And it's not kind of like storing the result. It's just, if I filtered this and displayed it, what would it look like? So that's what that does. Whereas the dot display is just displaying the thing immediately that it's appended to. So we've run the data above, we had a look at it, and what we're being asked to do is make a new data frame. So it's good practice to make a new data frame because we don't want to be fiddling with the data frame that's ingested the data, kind of like the source data frame. So let's go ahead and make a new data frame. It's already telling us to use people data frame. So we're saying people table equals people data frame. A single equals is just to say that this object is this object. If I was to use a double equals, then it's like a check, does this equal this? But we're using a single, so I'm just saying that this is this. And probably Y is at the bottom of our script if we were to spell things correctly. We can print out as we go along. So people data frame equals people table. Let's have a look at people data frame. It's exactly the same. That's kind of what we expected. And now we're being asked to filter the table for people called Mark. And it tells us what a filter is data frame dot filter, the column that we're interested in, and then a double equals here and the value that we want to filter for. So we know the column and we know the value, which is first name and Mark. So I could work on a new line, but I'm just going to work with the line above. So we want to filter for first name. And we want to filter for the value. Oh, and I've missed the quotation. So if we run this now, we've got 3 rows back, Mark, all of the people called Mark. Okay. Now we're not interested in all of these columns. It's just asking us, can we select the first name and the job ID? And a select is dot select, column, comma, column, comma, column, so on and so forth. Now, if you know how Databricks works or PySpark works, it's sequential, so you can just append functions onto each other, and it will just run them in the order that it's got them. So doing dot filter, then I'm doing a dot select. We know our columns are first name and job ID is the one it wants. That's because I've spelt first name wrong. There you go. So we run this and we've basically got now our first name and our job ID. And then finally, it's asking us to stick an alias on there. So an alias is the same concept as SQL. So if you were to say, give me everything from contact as B, then you can refer to all the columns as b.contact, b.name, b. all of that, the same thing. In here, we just use .alias and then the alias that we want to give it. And it is asking us to use the letter P. There we go. So if we run this again, it's not going to change anything on our table, but we now know that this is aliased as P. The alias will just alias everything after it. If I was to do a dot filter here, or an add column or something like that, that would not be aliased as P. The alias is on everything, I guess, to the left of it. So we've completed our section 1 task. And in these training notebooks, we generally stick the answer in as well so that people can check where they are, or if they get it completely wrong, they can just run this and move on. But yeah, so basically we filtered the first name mark, selected our columns, alias as P, exactly the same as the answer. In our section 2, we're going to be using the job data frame, which comes from jobs table. Let's set up this just so that we can work with it. So again, going to be displaying our answers because it is job table, not jobs table. Okay, so here's our object, jobs table, and we want to filter it for the job police officer. We know how to use the filter now. So filter, column that we are interested in, which was job, equals the value that we are interested in. This is going to cause an issue. I'm going to show you this. It's going to fail. So you see our table here, and I'm going to show you there's a police officer here, but when we run this, there's no police officer there. So I intentionally put this in just to show you that it's case sensitive. So notice here that police officer has capital P, capital O. It's case sensitive on the value. The column is not case sensitive. So I could put in a lowercase j, even though it's an uppercase J here, but the value needs to be correct. So there we go. So there's our filtered one for police officer. Use dot alias. And they want us to call this one J. There you go. So again, that's not going to change anything. I'm going to show you something else as well. Here we've got single quotations. What I can do is put double quotations here. They're interchangeable. You can use either or. It will do the same thing. What you can't do is have a double and then a single, or a single then double. They have to match, but you can use whichever ones you want. It's fine. So if we check our section 2, yeah, filter for police officer equals J. Good stuff. And now we're going to join them together. So if we bring up the data that we've created so far, first names against our jobs, good stuff. If you have a keen eye, you can probably see what we're going to be joining on already. Now, the way a join works is you basically say data frame A dot join data frame B, and then what column is what column. So how are they joining together? And then the type of join that you're going to be using. So join to data frame. Again, let's print out our progress as we do it. Join data frame equals data frame A, which is people df, dot join data frame B, which is our job data frame. And how are we going to join them? So we know that one column equals another column, and those columns are going to be p dot job ID. Now we don't really need the alias here. The columns are unique in name, so we don't really need the alias, but I'm going to do it just so you can see where they've come from, or if someone debugging it can see that it's come from that data frame. And we're joining it to column j.jobid from the jobs table. And then how we're going to join them is just an inner join. Okay, so there we have our first name, our people table, which was Mark, joined to the job police officer, which is on job ID equals ID, so they're both 15. If the columns were named the same, then you can do a different type of join, which would look something, you could basically just put in ID like that, and it would join them. And it would only have one version of the column rather than the two we have here, but because they've got different names, joining them like this. Finally, then it's asking us just to select the columns first name, job, and hourly rate. So again, sequential, so we can just append it right onto the end here. First name, what else? Job, and hourly rate. There we go. So there is our join data frame of Mark, who's a police officer who earns 33 something an hour. Okay, good stuff. So I think one thing I'm noticing is that these are probably from an old data sheet. So there's an underscore here, which doesn't exist anymore. So I will have to amend them. But if you notice things like that, don't worry. Right, so we move on to the practice question now. So we've basically dealt with kind of the examples, and it's taught you how to use a filter, a join, a select, things like that. The practice is more something like the client would give you, less help, but basically using all of the skills above. So immediately it's saying we should probably bring in the original data frames again, just because we've been working on the people DF, been working on the job DF, we've been filtering them and stuff like that. So they're not going to be appropriate for the question now because they've removed a lot of the data from it. So it's good to bring them in again and restart. So what I'm going to say is people1 equals people table and job1 equals job table. It would like us to alias. I mean, we've seen above this is probably all right without the alias, but for the sake of the example, we will use the alias. Okay. And let's print out our progress as we do it. Okay. So fresh data set and our question one ready to go. So what we're doing is we're joining the people to the jobs data frame, and we're going to find out how many people have a higher hourly rate than 19. And in the filter, we can use different parameters. We don't have to use equals, we can use others. So we know that the join goes a little like this, people dot join jobs data frame on column something equals column something, and we're just going to do a left join on this one. It was people dot job ID equals job.id. So we'll just print that out just to check we've got the join working. Yep, so the join's working. Here's our tables joined together. And we can see that there's a couple of hourly rates in here. There's a 9, another 9, 23, a 33. We're being asked for everything over 19. So all we're going to do, stick a filter on, column, hourly rate. And what I'm going to filter for is greater than 19. Now, one thing I haven't checked is what the data type of the column is. So I've put a number, an integer 19 in there rather than in a string. If I just check in the job table, hourly rate should be fine. Should be fine just to just run it like that. So let's have a look. Good stuff. So these all look to be over 19. So that is question 1 done. Let's open up question 2. So question 2, we're being asked to filter first name and job and return an hourly rate of Donald the builder. Multiple filters can be used consecutively. So I guess in this scenario, we're being asked to find a specific record. Maybe there's something wrong with it. I'm going to steal the code above because it's going to be the same join, but the filter is just going to be different. So what do we want? We want to find first name, and we're checking for the value Donald. So if we run this, and I've changed my display to question 2. Now, the reason it's saying Donald the builder is because we have 2 Donalds here. So one's an account admin, one's a builder. Now I can see what the answer is going to be, but pretend in a bigger scenario, there's going to be a lot of data. So we're just going to fulfill the question. Job, builder. And if we're to run that, there we go. So then we filtered our record. So we've just used 2 filters consecutively. It just runs them sequentially. You can have as many as you want, really. It will just run them in order that you've put them in. Check against our answers. Good stuff. So we've returned the correct answer there. So that's it for the first session. Hopefully that's given you a bit of insight into just using those tools. Immediately you should be able to now go onto some notebooks. If you just write out the data frame or where you have an issue, you can just start filtering it, filter those columns for where you think the issue might be, and it should help you debug basically. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next lesson.